This is my sidekick, Dobby. Today, I am bringing you my May wrap-up. This month started out crazy with what I call Bookpocalypse, which basically means there were 35 books that came out on May 3rd. So, I'm going to be talking a lot about books that came out on that day. Let's get started. I started out the month reading Me Before You, and this one is actually an adult book. As you can tell, my friend Steph put her name in it because it's her copy of the book. Hi, Steph. This book, if you don't know, is about a girl who gets a job caring for a man who is in a wheelchair and he is paralyzed from the neck down. And it's about their adventures. If you like crying, this is probably a good book for you. I gave it 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing. And I actually just saw the movie 2 days ago, which was also wonderful, but I will probably talk about that in a different video. Next up, Bookpocalypse hit, and with it came a whole bunch of amazing books. I actually went and I took a picture of a big pile of books that I wanted to buy on Bookpocalypse Day, and I only actually bought 4 of them on that day, though I do want to read some of the others. But as I took that picture of about 10 books that came out on May 3rd that I wanted to read, I looked at the shelf and there were actually more. But there's a starting point. Anyway, book 1 that I read on Bookpocalypse was The Crown by Kiera Cass. This is the second in a duology that is a sequel to the Selection trilogy. That's how I like to describe it, because even though they are considered in the same series, these 2 are a different story than the original 3. So I like to separate it in my mind a little bit. I'm not going to get into what this is about because anything I would use to describe this book is a spoiler, at least for the first 3 Selection books, if not for the first book in the sequel duology as well. But I gave this one 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. The fangirl side of me actually enjoyed it less than the writer side of me, but it was definitely enjoyable, and I recommend it if you love the Selection series. Next up, I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and if you saw my book talk for this, which was my first ever book talk, I am obsessed with this book. I don't usually read new adult, but this one is so worth it, and it was amazing, and it was 5 stars, hands down. It's the sequel to A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this one follows Feyre as she discovers a different part of the Fey world than she experienced in the first one. Again, I definitely recommend this series. This is it's definitely in my top 3 books of 2016 so far. It's probably a very close second to Morning Star, but it's amazing. Definitely read it. Next up, I had The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I also did a book talk for this, which you can see in the links below, and I actually met Morgan Matson the day after I read this book, and I read it in 2 days. It was wonderful. I believe I also gave this one 4 stars. I did have one major issue with it, which you can see in my book talk if you go look at it, but overall it was definitely fun, definitely enjoyable, and a very good summer read because, like most of Morgan Matson's books, it takes place during the summer. This one is about a girl whose plans for the summer blow up in her face. Her great internship is taken away from her, and she ends up having to walk dogs for a living. And there's a boy, there's friendship, there's family issues, and it's a lot of fun. Next up is The Last Star by Rick Rancy. This is the final book in the 5th Wave series, which the movie just came out for the first one recently, but this is the last one. It finished it up. I believe I also gave this one 4 stars. I'm still kind of processing this. I will probably do a book talk for it once I've let my feelings fully sink in. I finished this just under a week ago over Memorial Day weekend, There's a lot to process. It was a good ending. It did feel right in a way, even though there were some things that kind of hurt. And I'm gonna leave it at that. But definitely worth the read, especially if you've already read the first 2 books in the series. Yeah. Next I have the last book that I got on Bookpocalypse Day, and that is The Trials of Apollo, The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. This is the first book of a new series in which Zeus has turned Apollo into a 16-year-old boy with acne and sends him to Earth to live as a mortal. This one I actually started before The Last Star, and I've been having a little bit of trouble getting through it. I don't know if it's the fact that it's middle grade and I've been reading a lot of older stuff recently, or if I'm just not feeling Apollo the way I felt Percy Jackson. But I'm still working on it. You can see my bookmark in there. I'm getting there, but I actually stopped reading this for a moment when The Last Star came out, and then I returned to it. So I'll get there eventually. This one has a really cool thing in the back. There's a little letter from Apollo to Zeus telling about Camp Half-Blood and how much he hates it. So that was fun to read. And I'll let you know how I feel about this when I finish. So that is all for the books that I read in May. But I did get one other book from a friend, and I'm really excited about this one. My friend Nat sent me Frost Like Night from BookCon. And this one is the final book in the Snow Like Ashes trilogy. And I have not started it yet, but I'm probably going to read it over the summer. And I'm super excited because I really do like this series. And you will definitely hear more from me. It also came with some pins. There's a pin for Snow Like Ashes, Ice Like Fire, and Frost Like Night. So these will probably go on my fandom bag. And that is it for the month of May. I met Morgan Matson, I read some wonderful books, I survived Bookpocalypse, and there are more books for me to read from that day. And we are now heading into summer. So I will see you next time. Goodbye! Next up, I read... No, I didn't. Gee.